open, honest communication. I didn't want it to be a surprise for me to say, oh, I forgot to start the recording, and you guys to go, what recording? And be worried. Okay? So again, just communicating. So these are all things you guys have learned. Nothing here is new. The only thing that may have been I forgot that would be let's not zoom it in as I talk. The reciprocal, because it's been a hot minute since we did reciprocals, which is to the power of -1 or flipped in a fraction, however your brain chooses to think about it. So, and our different number sets are over there. Again, you've seen those two, where we were dealing with real numbers is everything, and it gets more and more specific as we go. So these are all things we have seen before, but may have been a minute since we looked at the official rules. So what we're going to do today is going to be a lot of review. Hopefully when you guys were looking through that first homework assignment we're going, that's really familiar but also kind of awkward. So we're going to work through some of those ones that were worded weird or worded awkwardly, because that is honestly the most common issue we have with this first chapter, is that you go, what the heck does that mean? Because they word it weird. So we're going to go through those. So you're going to want to have your notebooks out. So grab a notebook. If you need a notebook, let me know. I have plenty. Need a notebook? Do you have a color preference? Okay. Some people are very passionate about what color math is. Red is the front. There's the red. Are you passionate about what color math is in your writer? It doesn't matter. Okay, green it is. I also get a notebook. Oh, when it's gone. Grab a stack. I also have composition ones if you were anti-spiral, but I just picked up spirals because I feel like that's the most common designer. Go green, purple. Anybody else? I got them. I get them in boxes, 25. So I have tons. Okay. So we got, everybody else need one? Go. All right. So again, this is stuff that we know. Most of this you guys have seen a gazillion times to the point that we no longer think about it. We know that that's an equal sign. We read it equal to. The squiggly equal sign. It's about equal to. It's the estimate. We've got the not equal to, which is the equal sign that's crossed out. If any of these are unfamiliar, you go, I didn't remember that, or I didn't know that. Write it down. Again, I will never check your notebooks. I'm not looking to see what you write down. Write down what's helpful to you, your brain, and what you need to remember. We are going to be dealing with absolute values, so we've got our absolute value bars here. We've got our power notation, and to remember our repeating decimals, get the bar over the top. Our absolute value property, we will be using this, I want to say it was like questions 25, 26, that kind of vibe. 26 and 28 use the absolute value property. We will work through some of them like that, but those are one of the ones that are usually the weirdest to wrap our brains around in this first section, is the write this without the absolute value bars kinds of problems. So write down anything you need from this page. We will work with this when we get to those problems, but I'm working them kind of in the order of the homework set so that when we're done, you can kind of use this as a guide to go, oh, this is what I really needed to do here. Okay? And I try and wait till I see everybody done writing before I change it, but if I ever change it too fast, please, please, please let me know. I am always happy to go back to it or to put it back up at the end if we need more time on it. And again, I will post the PDF of them every day to the Canvas page. I also need to drink more water because that's what I do when I wait for you guys to write. Ready? All right. So our first set of problems was dealing with the if x is less than 0 and y is greater than 0, is this positive or negative? So I've written up at the top kind of a little reminder, when we have a positive multiplied with a positive, we're always getting a positive answer. A negative times a negative is going to give us a positive answer. The only time we get a negative answer is if we have one of each. So looking through these little statements on the right here, when it says x is less than 0, is that positive or is that negative? Negative. And if y is greater than 0, is that positive or negative? Positive. So when we have x times y, that means I have a negative times a positive. So is this going to be positive or negative? Negative. Negative. How about if I square the x? That'll be positive. So then it's positive times a positive, which again is positive. What about the bottom one? Woo. Devices, I need you to talk to each other properly, please. I was nowhere near you when you decided to change pages. So I have a positive number and we are subtracting a negative number. It's going to be a positive. Okay, so sometimes it's not multiplication, so make sure you're paying attention to that. But that is, I believe, the first 2 questions on the homework. Just thinking through it that way. Okay, so not super complicated. We've done this before, but again, been a couple months since we mathed. We're getting started. All right, so this is looking at our inequality statements. For this first one, -7 and -4, which inequality symbol are we going to put in between them? Less than. How about pi over 2 and 1.5? Why? Somebody defend it.
That was great. It's great. It's great. This one is great.
What is pi? 3.1. So a little bit more than 3, right? So what is 3 divided by 2? 1.5. So a little bit more than 3. Will it be bigger than 1.5 or smaller than 1.5? Bigger. And so the crocodile eats the bigger number. I have a friend who is a literal rocket scientist. They work at Rolls-Royce in the aerospace department. And I asked her one day, I was like, do you ever use the crocodile still when you think about your inequalities? And she went, every single time. So just because it comes from 2nd grade does not mean it's not valid. Crocodile eats the bigger number. Just saying. How about square root of 225 and 15? Equal to. Same thing. Another way to think about this one, if the thinking through dividing pi in your head was a little bit much, multiply both sides by 2. Pi, 3. So there's lots of paths through these. You can go many, 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 many different ways. How would we write that x is negative as an inequality? X is less than 0. We literally had that on the previous page. But it's good for us to practice going the other direction. How would we write that d is between 4 and 2? D is less than 4 and greater than 2. So we could put it as, so you could do it as and, or we could put it as a union and do it as 2 separate pieces. Greater than 2, helps I put it there. But that's really messy, and we don't really like that super much. So the way that we are going to do this one here is we're going to do it as a single inequality, like sandwich. So 2 is less than, D is less than 4. D is literally between the numbers. So you can do it like this. And when we get into things like polynomials and we're writing sets and we're writing domain and ranges that are of piecewise functions, we're going to wind up with separate pieces like that, where we've got 2 separate pieces that we join with a union. But it's also okay to do that as the sandwich inequality. Totally fine. So Okay, we're going to start looking at the absolute value things. When we have numbers inside of them, we can just simplify. So, looking at this first one up here, simplify. Absolute value, -3 minus 4. Yeah. Because what we do is we treat the absolute value bars like parentheses. So we're going to do this simplification before we apply the absolute value concept. So this is really going to become the absolute value of -3 minus 4 gives me -7. Remember, absolute value, I always think of it as my Apple Watch. I can take 7 steps this way. I can take 7 steps that way. I can't untake 7 steps. So even if it's left, right, up, down, it doesn't matter. So my answer here is 7. I take 7 steps. It does not matter what direction it goes. So it's a little different on the second one. Remember, our absolute value bars go in the same place, order of operations. Why is this parentheses? So we do that first. So what is this second one? Absolute value of 7 plus the absolute value of -4. 11. Because we simplify first, so this is going to be 7 plus absolute value of -4 is 4, which means we get 11. These bottom two are the ones where we get tripped up the most. And I see back row doing the ostrich thing, so I will change the view so we can zoom it in and get it up a little higher. If you guys ever need me to change things, especially back row, please let me know. I can always raise them up. So these are the ones that people get most confused on in this first homework, is the rewrite without absolute values given a certain condition about our variable. Because it's not like the top where we're order of operationsing it. What we're doing is we're using that absolute value property, which I'm going to pop back to real quick, where it says, whoop, if your argument, so the guy inside, is positive, then it equals whatever that is. If our argument is negative, then we take our statement inside and make it negative. So when we're looking at these pieces, we're looking to see if x is less than 2, is my argument here going to be positive or is it going to be negative? So instead of thinking of it purely theoretically, think about a number. What is a number less than 2? 1. If x is 1, is my argument positive or negative? Positive. So to write it without absolute values, so this would be positive. I'm going to just write that. Positive. So that means the absolute value bars are just decoration. They're not actually doing anything here. So my statement without absolute values is exactly what it says here. 2 minus x is my answer. Let's look at the next one. If A is smaller than B, if A is less than B, is my argument inside the absolute value positive or negative? It's negative because A is smaller. So if I subtract a bigger number from a smaller, that means this piece is going to be negative. Which means my absolute value bars are doing work. This A minus B is negative. So in order to write it without absolute values, what we do is we take the whole argument, my A minus B, and we set it as negative. So when it's positive, what's inside the absolute value is what it is. If my argument's going to be negative, we have to take the opposite to get rid of those absolute value bars. But we don't really like to have parentheses in our final answers and stuff anyway. So how can we simplify this? Negative A plus B. Technically correct, distributing the minus sign through. Not super awesome math grammar to start with a minus sign. So what can we do? B minus A. And that would be how the answer key would have this written on these. It would have it written as B minus A. And if you're just looking in like the back of the book, it will just say B minus A and you go, why? Okay. So what's up, Anthony? From me, no. From IU, maybe. So, like, I was like, I won't take points off it because you've done the mathy part. Like, totally fine. But when you get into other things or other higher courses, and when we start doing things with pieces, it sometimes does matter what order things are in. So I will always point out where we have completed the mathing part, and this is just grammar. That's the way I think of it. It's math grammar. Technically correct, better. Okay, so this is technically a correct answer. It's just not the best math grammar. If you're looking at answer keys, especially like back of the book or anything available elsewhere online, or if you ever go on to like Khan Academy, which actually really does have good pre-cal stuff. So if you ever need extra videos and stuff, Khan Academy has some excellent stuff. They will never end here. Or if you're doing online, like the Khan Academy quizzes, they will not accept that answer. It'll have to be the good grammar one. Okay, so usually for me, I won't take the points off on it. If there's ever something super pedantic that I'm specific about, I will tell you guys beforehand. But if you're looking at online resources or additional help or additional questions, or when we start getting, or if you wind up switching teachers or in your higher courses, they sometimes are pedantic about that, okay? So again, I try and communicate open and honestly with you guys. But, so, better answer, okay answer. So now that we have, that is right. Now that we have kind of gone through that and re-warmed up our brains and remembered how things get weird, going with it, I'm going to give you time to work on that. We're not just going to plow ahead. So now that we've gone through, especially those absolute value questions, because I know those were worded weird, try it. You're going to turn it in on Monday. If you finish it today, you can absolutely turn it in today. You're always welcome to turn things in early. If you don't have your book, which many of you probably don't because I told you to leave them at home, there is a digital copy on the Canvas page. And I can show you where that is again if you need it. Everything gets turned into that white bin right there with the giant words that say turn in. It's super subtle. Notebook, yeah. Yeah, if you ever need scratch paper, I have them up here. Everything gets turned into the bin. So we will not often have time to work in class, but instead of just like plowing forward, I wanted us to get our kids, to get our brains wrapped around it, ask questions if you got them, be nice.